Welcome to Life of Plenty. I'm your host, Lisa Uhrik. Absent my co-host, Ashley Michael, who is still a bit under the weather, but in studio today with one of my favorite people, Emily Paton. Welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to be here and to be on this thing and actually be in an actual studio. It's actually a really cool thing.
Well, you are, Emily is a radio personality herself, and you have two programs that air nationally. One, the Emily Paton Show, and the other is the Forgotten Song Project, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So, and where do those air? Where can people listen to those?
The Emily Paton Show airs on the New HD Media Network. So if you go to www.newhdmedia.com, that's newhdmedia.com, there will be a listen live link. I forget the layout, but there's a place where you can listen to the live player, download the app. There's apps you can download. You can listen on TuneIn. You can also listen on Odyssey, or if you have a smart speaker and Alexa, you just ask your Alexa to play New HD Los Angeles or play New HD New York. There's two stations in the New HD umbrella, if you will. And then the other one? And the Forgotten Song Project, you can listen to it two different places. One of them being Venom.fm, that airs Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 Central. The other one is wakiradio.com, which is an independent internet radio station out of Annapolis, Maryland, and that airs Sunday morning at 10.
It's a special kind of project that you're doing, and Emily's got a couple of special attributes. One, you were born without sight.
That is
right?
Correct, yeah.
And so Emily has an unusual set of abilities that have kind of come with the absence of sight, that have given you an interesting set of memories and an interesting way of connecting things that make for a very unique ride when you're with your shows. And I think, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today, because you don't read in the way with a physical book by opening it up, or at least I don't think you do that very much.
Not as much as I used to. I mean, admittedly, when I was younger, I was kind of forced to. I wouldn't say forced to, but it was kind of forced. Forced isn't the right word. It was just because it was encouraged is the word I'm looking for.
You were encouraged to read in Braille.
Yeah, I was encouraged to read in Braille.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is I couldn't comprehend as much as I would have liked, and also it honestly bored me. Like I'm not gonna lie there, but then I discovered the joy of actually listening to audiobooks, and I was able to comprehend much more. It made reading more fun, and since then I've never looked back. I mean, and I do want to preface something and stress something rather important, a misconception even among blind people, if you will. Braille is still needed. People still need Braille to read the signs on, like, the locker rooms on the YMCA door to go change. Also, I have a Braille tablet that not only writes in print but also in Braille. It's basically an Android tablet with a Braille keyboard.
So Braille's important, but let's talk about, this show is all about your favorite books and all about the ways that reading has meant something to you, or the things that reading has meant to you. And you mentioned that you first discovered a love of reading with when and where? When?
I guess it was when I got my first audiobooks. They were on CD, and you put it into this little machine, and then it would read it. And then really it started taking off when it was kind of a digital thing. It was like a cartridge that you put into the machine, and there were books on there.
Let's talk about the books you read, because not the mechanics of it, but like, what did you hear? What were some of the things that you remember experiencing, or do you remember titles? Do you remember?
Harry Potter books were a favorite.
Okay.
Also, Anthony Horowitz, Alex Rider, which is, I guess that would be kind of like the action genre.
Yeah.
Basically, it's
so you like action books?
I don't know if I'd consider myself to be like I just like books that have a good story. Things that can just loop me in and not want to make me stop listening to it.
So what keeps you, Harry Potter, you listened to all the Harry Potters?
I did.
Growing up?
I did.
And what did that do for you? What do you think? What you just enjoyed them, or?
I just enjoyed them, but also when I finished reading them, I would have the machine read to me as I was sleeping.
Okay.
So it became a nice little soundtrack to lull me to sleep, and even kind of certain parts of the book kind of made it into my dreams a little bit, which I actually very much like when that happens. So,
do you have that happen often? I mean, a good book makes it into your dreams?
Not as much as I used to, because I don't do that as much anymore. But I did have that happen quite a lot.
Growing up,
younger,
when you were younger. So you remember the Harry Potter books and the action books. How did reading evolve for you as you went through school and into college?
It really hasn't. I mean, I'd still go back and read those books if I ever got the chance. I kind of stopped. Like, I didn't really feel like I had a good way to get more audiobooks when I moved down here, because I grew up in PA. So like it kind of stopped. And then occasionally I'll read, I've read like Pillars of the Earth.
Ken Follett, Pillars of the Earth. Now I know that your grandfather encouraged you to read Pillars of the Earth. How was that?
It was everything that I want in a book. I could not put it down. I was just like, I wanted to see what happens next. There are so many characters and so many stories, but like they all kind of, they just reel you in. And the series is really, really good. There's 4 books in the series, and they're all like that. I actually finished the series at the beginning of this year, thanks to LibreFM credits.
Yeah. So you got some credits for Christmas last year.
I did.
And you used them on, what all did you use them on?
Mainly the series that Pillars of the Earth is in.
Yeah.
I also recently got, with the last credit I got, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, which is also an Apple TV series. Really, really good book. And also the narrator, because the narrator plays a pretty big role in the audiobook. So the narrator for Kingsbridge, the series that Pillars of the Earth is on, is really good too. So I mean, the narrator is
the narrator can make such a difference.
It really can
in books. Now, do most of the books that you listen to over your lifetime have sound effects, or just narrator?
It's just a narrator.
Just the narrator who's making all this come alive. So what do you look for in a good narrator? What makes a good narrator?
If you can really show emotion as you read. There was one book I remember reading on that little machine, Full Tilt by Neil Shusterman.
Full Tilt by Neil Shusterman? Say that again.
Shusterman? I don't know how to pronounce it, but
Full Tilt.
Yeah, it was a really good book. But the narrator, he had like a really deep voice, almost like I want to say it's like an English accent, or at least a fake English accent, but he did a great job at reading that book.
I love a fake English accent.
Yeah.
A fake English accent. Oh, I should be told that I can't do that. Anyway, so but a nice English accent. I think you even have an English accent on your phone, don't you?
I do.
Or is it New Zealand?
Right now, my phone is Irish.
Irish.
Yeah.
Okay, so the accent matters, with the reading. But it's interesting to me, and one of the reasons that I thought it would be so interesting to have you on the show is that your reading experience is, in some ways, wildly different than others, because you don't have the option of picking up a physical book and reading it in the same way unless it's Braille. And there aren't as many books available in Braille as are published in other ways. But you have this audiobook experience, which today is really the way a lot of people are experiencing, especially the big readers. They'll be reading, most readers I know are reading 5 books at a time. So they'll have one audiobook, and they'll have one that's sort of like a serious book, and one that they, because you're not always in the mood for the same thing. Do you have different books that you read at the same time, or do you kind of go straight through? How do
I
you
go
read?
straight through. Like I don't usually. Yeah, I'm a one book girl, and then
One book you like to finish it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Full Tilt is Schusterman, Neil Schusterman.
yeah.
To get back to him, Schusterman, like shush, SUH. And what did you like about Full Tilt?
It was mainly the admittedly, it was mainly the narrator and also the roping in aspect, and it was a good book to listen to at night because it's about theme parks. It involved a lot of theme parks. It involved a lot of theme parks that basically these kids, I think there were 4 kids, they go to a Six Flags and then they meet this girl who has like witch powers, and they get invited to this really magical park that you can only go to by invitation only, where it's like each ride is something different. So one ride was like you're in World War II and you're I forget what it was different
So each
aspect.
ride actually takes you to a different time and place?
Yeah.
Wow.
There was one with it was like ancient Egypt. There was one where it was like a hall of mirrors, but it's like you're really distorted and become like this creature.
So the actual the idea that riding on a park ride could actually transport you into a different way of being or a different time or place. How fascinating. That's really interesting. Have you ever read about a place or had an audiobook that was about a place that you felt like you wanted to go or a time that you wanted to go?
Not really. Not really. I mean, reading the Harry Potter books, I always felt like I wanted to fly. And I take that back because when I was reading the action books, like a lot of them took place in like different parts of the world. So like, I mean, not that I really wanted to go there, but like there were times when I dreamt that I actually went to those places. Mm-hmm. So that's really the closest that I've come to.
Well, if you dreamt you went to those places, you were kind of visiting them in your mind. So
exactly. Yeah.
Now, the last one that you chose after the Ken Follett. Ken Follett, gosh, he's a tough read because he's really thick. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of places. He moves around in time, like sometimes over decades and even centuries. He moves around a lot. There's a lot to follow there. Did you find it easy to follow or how?
When I first read it, because I've actually read it multiple times. That's another thing. That's another thing with me. I will read a book multiple times.
That's interesting, yeah.
But when I first started reading it, it was harder to follow. But then as time went on and I kind of moved through the series, it did get easier to read and kind of comprehend what was going on.
I had a professor at Tech that told me when we started reading, textbooks, and it was all very dense and hard to read. And she said, just keep reading because just let it flow over you. The words just flow past you, and eventually your brain will start acclimating and will start picking it up. And one day you'll just open it and it'll make sense. Is that the way? Is that the way it is for you, or how does it work for you?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. With Ken Follett and such. Would you read another Ken Follett today?
I would. If I knew which one to read, I think I would pick up another Ken Follett.
Yeah, and the last one you chose with your Libro FM credit was Perfect Chemistry. You mentioned that, and that's an Apple TV series now, but the book is better. Got to tell you, the Apple TV is good. But how did you find that book? What did you take away from that book? What kinds of things did you enjoy or take away?
The main character, Elizabeth Zott, was just a rock star in that she defied all of society's expectations. Like she was like, this doesn't apply to me. Like I don't want to get married, and why? Just like she questioned, because it takes place in the late 50s, early 60s, which a lot of society at that time, women were basically inferior to men, and so like everything was dictated by the man and what the man wanted to do, and religion was a big part, and she didn't believe any of that, which is just something that I have to admire. It's something really cool. And again, the narrator did a phenomenal job. So
well, she did, kind of thwart common wisdom, and she was very much an engineer, and she fell in love with somebody who really helped her find her voice and find her place, which is kind of neat too. But there's a lot of really good elements. I have pride around that book because I read it as an advanced reader copy in ARC, and I was like, this is going to be a really good book. And I just thought the writer wrote with such humor. Did you find it funny?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of funny things that she was writing in, I thought, or at least she had a cheeky quality about how she said everything to me.
It was almost like a children's book met an adult book. Like she read it, like the style of the writing was kind of simple, but I don't know how to quite put it.
I think I follow you. It was kind of, she had a cheeky, straightforward, almost like I'm telling a children's story, but in a way that there's so much more going on. I mean, in the book, she's, she ends up doing a cooking show, and she's a scientist doing a cooking show, and part of her just resents the fact that she's doing a cooking show, but so it's elemental, but there's so much behind it. And, and I think that's true of good children's books anyway. So there's a simplicity, there's a reduction, if you will, and in the whole thing, it's kind of neat. Does reading ever make you want to write?
Not about anything like that.
Not like a fictional story, but you've done some writing.
Yeah, but it's not based on like anything I've read. It's mainly based on the music I've listened to.
Right. Well, music tells stories too, and I know you're very much in the music genre. You and I have debated in the past whether you're lyrically driven or musically driven and all that, but the lyrics actually have a story in and of themselves. And for you actually think in terms of songs like almost like they're people, like the song actually has a story and a
life
of its own. So talk about some of the things you've written.
So basically these stories that I write, which I haven't written them in a while, these song people, they have ages, and basically they are better than people are. Like people aren't perfect; they don't have perfect memory, but these song people do.
They have superpowers.
Yeah, they have a lot of superpowers, and in these stories that I wrote, these songs have they're living in their own world, but experiencing my world as well, because they're on my phone. And there's I've written about 70 of these. And they go on like different adventures. There's different characters of songs. There's some that are wild, some that have imperfections based on the fact that the sound is imperfect. There's songs that are younger, songs that are older. They just have different personalities, different quirks.
Yeah. Well, it's beyond personification, and I think it's such an interesting literary device because, we talk about Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in Wonderland, and how brilliant he was, but every great author has kind of imagined the world in a different way. And what I love about what you write is you're imagining the world from a totally different perspective, from the perspective of the songs. So if I were a song and I live in Emily's phone and I live in the radio and I get to go out on the radio and be heard and I get to, so you kind of get in the actual psyche of the song, if you will. Is that right?
Yeah. So you mentioned being on the radio. So in the stories that I've written, being on the radio is like a song's greatest dream. And actually, there's a sickness that can develop by songs being played on the radio and then not suddenly, which is basically the reason why I created the Forgotten Song Project. And basically what happens, the sickness is dusty station disease. So what happens is like there's a dusty substance that falls into the back of the song person's throat, and then sometimes the dust can spread to like different parts of the body, including the brain, making it very hard to talk, very hard to speak. And sometimes, in very severe cases, there's a certain loneliness that comes upon the song because of, like, it depends upon how forgotten they are, how long it's been since they were last played on a radio station. And different radio stations can cause that. Now, I will grant you this is only from my personal perspective. I mean, I don't know all of the radio stations that play all the songs.
Well, it's interesting. It's a great perspective, and it's like a great. I think if you put these things together and made them into sort of a novel with vignettes of different songs, it's a wildly interesting way of thinking. It would belong in the fantasy genre. It's kind of how great writers think. They think in fantastical ways where they're like, wait a minute, what if the song is alive? And what if it lives and has all of these experiences and even gets sick? And I think that's just kind of really, really interesting. And I'm glad you write. And I think writing and reading are really part of a life of plenty, really part of getting. And the other place that you read a lot is really around musicians and around what's going on in the musical world and in listening to songs and such. What makes a great song?
Nostalgia is part of it. So if the sound or the artist triggers a certain memory that I have in my life, that's a big part. Also sound. If it has a good sound, really nostalgia and sound are the big ones.
Well, I mean, if it's a new song, how do you know it's a good song if it's a new song? I mean, what are your criteria for, ooh, this is a really great song?
Sound.
What do you mean when you say sound? Because all music is sound. So how do you differentiate something that's a good sound versus not a sound? Because one of the things I know about you is that you're really good at identifying an artist that's going to be successful. And what is it that you're looking for or that you're listening for? You may have to think about that for a minute.
There really is so much that goes into it. I can't. There's no like.
There's no one silver bullet.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things that go into it? What are, like, is it the sound of the instruments and the way that they come together?
It's instrumentation. Also, vocals can have an impact. Whether, like, if it's got it's not just beat, but beat can be a part of it, or if it's a mellow song, if it's just...
There's some things here that you don't quite have words around,
yeah.
I think. But it would be interesting for you to think about, because I think you think about it all the time when you are doing your programs, and you're selecting a song to be on the program. You're running through a set of criteria that maybe even you don't know about just yet. But you have an uncanny ability to pick great music, and I appreciate you talking about your life of plenty with books today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Great to be here. We've been talking with Emily Paton, and about her books and about how all of us can enjoy them and our life of plenty. Thanks for listening. Special thank you to Stonecom, our radio station that made this production possible.